Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever is applicable to where you are. I would like to thank the workshop organizers for inviting me to share some thoughts about the subject matter of our meeting here. I would like to do that from a perspective of someone who is both a researcher and an educator. I will start off by referring to a presentation given by my colleague Stace Bollier and her co-authors at the annual meeting of AAAS in 2017. They talked about the value of the deep sea and showed this diagram, which with various categories of value that can be assigned to different aspects of activities associated with the deep sea. For us here, most important will be the category termed direct use, which is broken down into market and non-market value. The market value includes seabed mining and is of prime importance for an ISA contractor. The contractors have certain obligations to fulfill, but they look forward to future market gains or returns on their investment. The second category of direct value, the non-market value, includes marine science and education, and is of prime importance for researchers and educators like me. The activities associated with this non-market category provide an added value in the form of new data, which will help to fill some gaps in knowledge, but will also allow to identify further gaps. In this context, I would like to refer to the first Mid-Atlantic Ridge RAMP workshop in Szczecin in Poland, when we identified and discussed gaps in knowledge most relevant to the RAMP process, as summarized in the workshop report. The report points out to some of the gaps that may be bridged by exploration activities. From a researcher's perspective, studies that will ultimately lead to a better understanding of the Mid-Atlantic Ridge system and its RAMP have an added value by allowing those involved in the research and exploration to still make discoveries, and thus to provide excitement for themselves and possibly to the general public. In this sense, if I may borrow a phrase from a chapter by Thurber and Nedburn in a recent book on the deep ocean's natural capital, the Mid-Atlantic Ridge is an epicenter of knowledge generation. In addition, also from a scientist's perspective, an added value is a possibility to interact with the contractor. I may mention here that a Polish marine research community I'm a part of has been requested by the Polish contractor on the Mid-Atlantic Ridge to prepare a report which summarizes what is known about the Polish contract area. And we hope it is a good start for interactions in the future. Now to the educator's perspective. I would like here to refer to a personal experience. A few years ago, my students, mostly geology and natural science, attended a talk given by a visiting colleague who is involved in research on deep sea mining. He presented a very balanced view and told them that if they want this, we would need this, or we would need this. So he explained why deep sea mining would be necessary. We would need this or this or this, but at a cost of destroying and losing this, of which we know very little about. At the end, the students were asked who was for going ahead with deep sea mining and who was against. The response was much as it's shown in this graph here. Some were for, but the majority were rather against. But all were unanimous in that they ought to know more, they ought to learn and know more. So it's a good sign for an educator, the need for capacity building. So with this obvious need, we have to think about possible mechanisms for this capacity building. Perhaps it would be instructive to look at the example set by Interreach. Interreach offers student fellowships and cruise bursaries for young researchers to go on research cruises whenever there are berths available. A young colleague of mine, Dr. Dominik Zawadzki, won an Interreach cruise bursary to sail on board the Sally Ride to the Cocos-Nazca Plateau in 2018 to study geology and geophysics of the area. Here are a few snapshots of what had been a really tremendous experience for him and other international members of the cruise. They had a hands-on experience with everything a research cruise demands, getting dirty on the deck, doing lab work, attending meetings and presentations, etc., etc. And eventually, they all co-authored a scientific paper on the findings they all contributed to. So this is an experience with the post-cruise work. So as an educator, I would like to see many more young people having this first-hand experience in research on the deep sea, including mid-ocean ridges. From my perspective, this will be an extremely important added value of ISA contracts for exploration. And that was my final message, with thanks to my colleagues Stace Bolli and Dominik Zawadzki. And thank you all for listening. And I'm leaving you with the ocean at its best.